few minutes. So good evening, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to being here for this Thursday night meditation group. And very fortunate to have Ajahn Tiradhammo here with us at Ratanagiri for our Thursday evening session and also for our Sunday meditation day as well. So just as a bit of an introduction to Ajahn Tiradhammo, I first met the Ajahn in 1989, which is now 35 years ago. And that was when I'd gone from Thailand to England. I was accompanying a senior Thai monk acting as his translator. So I met Ajahn Tiradhammo at that time and ended up staying on in England, and then was invited by the Ajahn to join him in Switzerland at Dhammapala Monastery. So I was there for a couple of years before ending up deciding to leave monastic life and come back to Australia. And we've continued our connection, friendship, so that later on when Ajahn Tiradhammo was invited to come and be the abbot in New Zealand, having been in Switzerland for 17 years. Yeah. So the abbot in New Zealand for a number of years. How many years was that?
7 years.
7 years, yeah. And then after that, he was traveling and caretaking monasteries around the world when the abbots needed to take a break. And finally now resident at Wat Buddha Dharma in Sydney. So Ajahn, when he was in New Zealand and also traveling, has been able to come and spend time with us. Certainly when I had the centre in Sydney, he'd come and do what we're doing this evening, Thursday night meditation, and a Saturday or Sunday meditation group retreat. And he hasn't been up here probably for about 3 years since COVID. So that sort of put a halt to travel and movement and things, and he's been quite busy. So I was renovating this place. So wonderful to have him back with us to share some Dharma, some insights, and particularly from his new book, which will be particularly having as a theme for our retreat day on Sunday, understanding the process of selfing or self-making. So Ajahn might sort of speak a bit about that this evening, but certainly we'll do a meditation first, have a cup of tea, and then continue with some teachings and some questions. So thank you for being here, Ajahn, and over to you.
So are these advanced meditators?
Mixed.
Okay. So mixed. Intermediate and advanced.
Probably.
Okay.
Yes.
Not beginners, not total beginners.
There's no one that's new to meditation here.
Okay. So we begin by just taking up a comfortable posture, however that is to you, sitting in a chair or sitting cross-legged. Most important is that it's reasonably comfortable. You can relax the body is not discomforted. And to be able to recognize the condition of the body, we have to turn our attention into what's called sensation, sense of touch in the body. You can sense the body touching your seat, maybe your feet touching the floor, maybe your hands touching your lap. Then, of course, there are internal sensations of the body. So first of all, just noticing if there's any particular place in the body where there is some discomfort. You do notice something, you can relax it as much as possible. And sometimes it can be helpful to actually move the body, the attention through the body. Say from the top of the head, just moving your attention through the body, different parts. Generally, we move from the top of the head, lay down the back of the body. Just noticing if there's any particular strong sensations in any particular place in the body. If so, maybe you could relax them as much as possible. Maybe some of them are not so easy to relax, but just bringing attention to them sometimes can help relaxation set in. Moving the attention down the back, for example, maybe down to the sensation of your backside on the cushion or the chair. Just trying to be aware as much as you can of these various sensations that make up our experience of body. Trying to move your attention down the back of the legs, back of the thighs, the back of the calves, down to the bottom of your feet, whether they're touching the floor or you can feel some coolness maybe if you have bare feet, or any other sensation that might be there. Just having an awareness of sensation in general. Sometimes it opens up different areas of our body. We become more aware of different parts of our body in different ways. Moving the attention around to the front of the legs, the ankles, of the front of the shins, front of the lower part of the legs, the shins, up to the knees. For people meditating, usually the knees can be somewhat sensitive. Either it's maybe you're closed, tight across the skin of your knees. There might be some tension inside the joints. Maybe nothing very obvious. Move the attention across the front of the upper legs, the thighs. Bringing your attention to the abdomen. Notice any particular sensation in the abdomen. Relaxed, tense. Notice the abdomen rising, falling with the breathing. Moving up the front of the body, solar plexus, through the heart area. Is there any particular sensation in the center of the chest? Lightness, tenseness, coolness, warmth. Maybe nothing very obvious. Up to the top of the torso, the front of the neck, the jaw, the lips, and moving attention to the nostrils. Noticing the sensation of breathing at the nostrils, or really anywhere else in the body where you can be aware of breathing, the sensation of breathing, the process of breathing. The lungs expanding and contracting with the breath, solar plexus rising and falling with the breath. Coolness and warmth at the nostrils as you breathe in and out. Whatever is the most obvious sensation of breathing. Breathing is very reliable because it's always present. We're always breathing as long as we're alive. Sometimes perhaps it's a bit subtle. If you lose connection with that sensation of breath, you can always make a few deep inhalations, exhalations, just to remind you of that sensation. But we always allow the breathing to return to a natural rhythm. This is an exercising and developing awareness, observation of breathing, not controlling the breathing. And from time to time, it can be helpful to bring your attention back to the body sitting here once again. Sometimes discomfort can build up unconsciously. And if the body is uncomfortable, it will attract attention away from the breathing. You notice any particular discomfort in the body? You can try to adjust your posture or relax this sensation as much as possible. We're taking up the breathing as the main focus for attention at this time. And maybe other sources of attention, strong sensations, thoughts, memories arising. We notice them, but try to bring our attention back to the breathing again. Try to allow the attention to settle on one object. As you focus your attention on the breathing, the sensation of breathing, and you can just notice how that is going. Say what the condition of your mind is in general. Is the mind able to focus on the breathing? Or does the mind slip off the breathing? Is the mind being distracted away from the breathing? Or is the mind able to settle on the breathing? And then perhaps try to observe just how clear that breathing is. Can you clearly observe this rising and passing of the inhalation and exhalation? Or is it a bit cloudy or fuzzy? Is it mostly just a concept in your mind, or can you really experience it directly? Which is more clear, the inhalation or the exhalation? That is noticing the general condition of the mind at this time, the degree of calmness or obvious lack of calmness of the mind, degree of clarity of mind. That's a very wide topic, both of them. There's no one thing called clarity or one thing called calm. It's a whole range of different degrees of these. But as you bring awareness to them, you become familiar with them and recognize just what's the possibility of the mind. Through training of collectedness and clarity, these qualities can be developed, can be increased. So bring your attention back to the body sitting here once again. Just noticing the general condition of the body. The body still relaxed. The relaxation increased. Or is there some places in the body the tension is built up? Again, in general, it's helpful if the body is relaxed and comfortable. Otherwise, usually the discomfort will attract attention away from the breathing. But sometimes the discomfort requires more than just relaxing it. There's some deeper root to it, deeper source to it. But first of all, we have to notice the condition in general first, before we can inquire what the cause of it is. So you can relax your posture, open your eyes. and have a cup of tea, right?
Please help yourself to tea, biscuits. Have a couple minutes for tea break. Yeah, thanks.
So it's a little bit too much to read tonight in half an hour. How many pages? 320, 330, yeah. So we'll have to summarize.
Just read us the last page.
It's my biography. I think
Start to like more
about the author, about the author or something like that. Or actually, the last page is blank, so that makes it simple. Very short and sweet. Well, I would say that there's many ways you can talk about the purpose of the Buddha's teachings. And I would say that from my book here, I would say that the purpose of the Buddha's teachings is to guide us to an experience of, you can say, selflessness, or as from this my book here, it's the cessation of eye making. So, but beyond eye making, it's about the cessation of eye making. And sometimes people maybe are familiar with the Buddhist concept of anatta. He's translated as no self, non-self. It's a shorthand version, I would say, just like a little footnote or a notation of, the principle involved in it. But unfortunately, it's quite difficult to explain that outside the context of the Buddhist culture, for example, because we just it's like the direct translation, no self, non-self, is not actually correct. Literally, it is, but doesn't really present what the Buddha means. It's here is a self telling you there's no self. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But the ultimate truth is that there's no permanent self, ultimately. But conventionally speaking, there is one. Here I am, with a biography and all the rest of it. So it doesn't. So if you just to say no self or not self doesn't quite explain it completely. But when I was researching my last book, I came across this phrase, eye making. It's only mentioned a very few times in the Buddhist scriptures, but I think that encapsulates much better what the Buddha was talking about, because there is a sense of a self, but it's continuously made up. It's artificial, it's made up. And just surprisingly, modern psychology now agrees with it. They finally caught up to the Buddha 2,500 years ago. One of the books I mentioned in here is a book called, what's it called? The Self-Illusion, I think it's called. Self-Illusion, by a behavioral psychologist and he's not a Buddhist, but just by the researching about the nature of the self, he came up with the same conclusion as the Buddha. I don't think he had the same realization, because I wouldn't say he's enlightened, but just through his research, just by pure scientific observation, he observed, where is this self? It's just made up. He talks about things like, what do they call it? Forget the exact word now, but when you imitate, mimicking, how that people tend to mimic people that they respect or they admire. They end up copying their facial expressions and their language and things. Yeah. And it's all unconscious. Suddenly you develop a new personality because you got a new friend. What? What happened to yourself? So, and if you, I think for most meditators, if you observe the nature of the mind and the body, you come to the conclusion that all of our problems go back to the self. I mean, this is not to denigrate the self. I'm just trying to point out where the source of suffering really comes from. It's believing in this self as something permanent to preserve, to hold on to defend. Yeah, if we recognize that, then we can let it be a bit more fluid with it, let it go a bit more, be more fluid with it as it evolves, its making, as it's being made up, and as it fades away. Yeah. Then it isn't a problem anymore. You still can reference a sense of a self. I feel like this right now, but then the next minute that I has changed, a different feeling, a different thought, a different memory, a different sensation in the body. Right? Have you noticed when you're observing your body, you notice different sensations in different parts of the body? Which one of those sensations is really you? Is your true self? Which one? Don't think about it too much. Can get too theoretical, and my this book here even is pretty thick, but I call it a contemplative workbook because to be worked through with meditation. So there's various meditation exercises. We have a self. Some people say even before we're born, there's a sense of a self. But just to keep it simple, in this lifetime, we develop a sense of a self. We've had it for a whole life, you can say, basically. So it's not going to just evaporate like that. It's all different levels of, say, layers of consciousness. They even say that our personality gets developed even in the womb. Already there's certain cellular memories in the womb starting to develop, which become a core of how the self builds around those memories. So it's very, very deep. So that's why it requires meditation practices. So the Buddha was well aware. So this book is about, first of all, in order to understand how to go beyond I making, we need to understand how I is made in the first place. So I've designated 4 different stages. And some of this gets very, very bit technical in Buddhist jargon. So that's why it takes a little bit of explaining here, but it can be, I guess if you use that model, that template, maybe you can get some perspective on it. There's like the very, very beginning is what the Buddha called anusaya. It's the tendencies for a self. You may notice if you look observing your states of mind, your thought patterns, for example, just how often the word I pops up. Where did that come from? Where is, there's an object here. There is seeing. And then you may notice that they're seeing, and then a little thought comes up. I am seeing. Not I, but ego is seeing. That's not quite correct. The I is actually seeing. Just the I picks up this sensory data right here, and it goes into the brain and is interpreted. So there's just all this eye sees is shape and color. Process in the brain by another process in the brain called sanya, or you can say kind of recognizing, cognition, and then that says, oh, that looks like, what does it look like anyway? What would you say that is? We know there's a bell, don't we? We know, don't we? Because we heard it ring. But if you were just somebody off the street, you look at that, you think,
Wow.
it's something to cook with, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a cooking pot. This pretty small one. But maybe if you haven't seen it before, your first thought wouldn't be it's a bell, would it?
It's a holy grail.
What religion is that? But it takes some usually some memory, some memory to remember this particular shape. Oh, that's probably a bell. You know, that looks more like a bell than my cup does here, but I can still bring my cup, couldn't I? Not quite so loud, but so put my tea, put my water in that and put my and if you don't, if you aren't clear enough, maybe you do that sometimes, you know. But the factual process is that there is just processes going on here. You know, you can say there's physical and mental processes going on, and then a little word comes up and says, "Oh, it's too complicated. I think I'll just say it's I, me." But that's artificial, isn't it? What is the I? What is the you that actually sees this? Just brain activity going on. Yeah. But of course, we've usually perceived it through the I, through the ego, so long, so often. It's our fallback. We just fall back to it. So you just forget. If your mind can be really, really calm, very, very calm, it quiets down this mental activity, this I referencing, and you notice that sometimes you can just see without anybody there. There's no sense of a self comes into it. It's just seeing. And end of story. Otherwise, you might look at this. Oh, that's a bell. A very nice bell. I like that bell. How can I get one? Should I steal it? We're going to buy one on eBay. Blah, 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 blah. And then the headaches begin. But if you just stay with the seeing of it, what's the problem? There's no greed, there's no aversion to it. That's just the way it is. So end of story. Then it's very peaceful. Not only that, but you begin to see it as it really is. You see it more clearly. Just, oh, that's just a bell. You know? Not beautiful, not ugly, it's just a bell. Otherwise, it can get very, very complicated. It can remind you of other times, maybe, you know, somebody, you saw this bell before, you had a terrible retreat sometime, a painful meditation, and you saw this bell, trauma. Sets off my trauma buzzers. Something. Or maybe it reminds you of jingle bells, you know. I don't know. Of course, that's very interesting for writing fiction books, you know. Pretty boring to write fiction if you just see a bell and that's the end of story. Won't make the Booker Prize, I tell you. So I think to me anyway, by using this phrase, I making, the full phrase is I making, mine, this is mine, and the underlying disposition to conceit. It means underlying disposition to keep self-referencing all the time. You know, I see this stuff, like, you know, emotions arise, and then oh, I'm angry. Well, and then if you're angry, that's not very socially acceptable, is it? You gotta get rid of your anger. You gotta bury it. You gotta do something with it. You gotta take a course in anger management or something or other. You just notice, oh, there is a particular emotion arising. It's not mine. There is a cause, there's a stimulus, there's a response, and it's just a process arising. Don't make any big story out of it. You don't take hold of it. Don't possess it as mine. It fades away. Everything arises and passes away, arises and passes away. That's the simple version. Sometimes, of course, this anger has a deeper root. You know, there's something else there. It's getting triggered somehow. So, but if you observe these processes, if you can observe this more objectively rather than subjectively, then it gives you more space. If you own this, you grab onto this anger, then you try and control it and try and do something with it, and you don't really see it as it is anymore. You get it all distorted by your own preferences or rejections or something or other, and you can't even see what your anger is. You can't see it as a stimulus response situation. then maybe there's, if you can see it more objectively, maybe you notice, when there's certain colors come into my focus. I was giving a retreat in Vancouver, and it was in this international house, and they had all these flags hanging up all around the wall, different. I couldn't even tell you half the countries that these countries' flags are for anymore. But just observing the colors, for example, when I observe red, no offense, a little bit of aversion arises. Don't take it personal. But when I see green, it's more relaxing. So I don't take it any further. You're still a good guy. This even goes to the effect that some of some teaching systems, I think it's called the anthropologists, no. Steiner School.
Yeah,
Steiner School.
anthropology.
Yeah, Steiner School. They even suggest that certain children should use certain colors to wear certain colors that affects their personality. See, they like red is very stimulating. So somebody who's a bit depressed, personality speaking, maybe should wear more red or something. Somebody who's very anxious, hypertensive, have hypertension, maybe they should wear green. Not to mention, painting your green curtains, aren't they? Are they green?
They're gray.
They're gray. Reading my mind, right? They are more gray than the ferns are anyway. Yes, okay. Gray is quite neutral, but yeah. Not black or white. But to be able to, first of all, some of the Buddhist, I quoted some of the Buddhist scriptures where the Buddha mentioned some of these principles, you see. But for most people, they need to contemplate them, reflect upon them, investigate them, because it's not something we normally see. And we can think about it. But thinking is still part of the self. You can kind of sort through your thinking. You can like this and like that and think good thoughts or bad thoughts or whatever, but it still doesn't go very deep into our psyche. Whereas most of this sense of the self comes at a very, very deep level in our being. This is where our sense of survival, like survival instinct, comes from. You have a sense of a self, and you have an instinct to preserve yourself. Yeah. And it has right into the very deep core of our being, into our cells, into our cellular structure. But some of the accomplished meditators in the Buddhist time, anyway, they could understand this teaching so deeply that they didn't have any more self-preservation instinct anymore. They didn't fear death. If it's time to go, well, no problem. Just the way it is. No instinct to preserve themselves. That's how deep it can be. But at one level, don't take this too seriously. Don't think about it too much. I can go out and stand in front of a car and just hope that it just let go before the splat. I doubt it. But by taking some of these teachings, at least can say receiving them anyway, not believing them, just receive them first of all, and that's interesting. Maybe I should investigate this, study it, investigate that, and see what happens. And just like with this exercise and focusing on breathing. If you can focus on the breathing and maybe your mind doesn't get any calmer, maybe it's not working. You have to find some other way, other method to calm the mind. Either it's maybe your wrong approach to the breathing. Like some people, they just try too hard. They think, the breathing, just watching breathing will save me, will calm my mind down and stop all the problems. So they sit there, and they don't even recognize that they're trying to force it. They aren't observing the natural breathing that they're actually trying to use this as a technique to calm their mind. But in general, the general principle is if you can settle your mind on any one object, we have a sustained focus for any object, that your mind will calm down. Otherwise, your mind is flitting around many different things, you see. We're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking all at the same time right now. Even your eyes are closed, you're still seeing blackness, darkness, or something. Then there's always the subtle sounds, sensations in the body. Your mind is processing all these things in the background, just running a what do they call it? Background process. Sometimes referring to computer terminology is helpful sometimes, It's like a spell checker in the background or something going on. So your mind is still a little bit busy, you see. But if you can find finding some object which is more, you find more affinity with, more connection with, sometimes there's actually 40 different meditation objects in the Buddhist teachings, the Theravada teachings, 40 different ones. And breathing is the most universal because it's the most common one for most people. They find it useful, but there's various ways you can use breathing also. Some people, they count the breaths. Some people just try to observe the rising and passing of the breathing. And there's dozens of ways of even counting the breaths. And, some of these things can be helpful in the beginning, but most important is that you just allow the breathing to return to a natural rhythm and try to observe this process. It's kind of a universal process of breathing, arising and passing, arising and passing. And then you can extend that sensitivity to observing the breathing to other sensations in the body. This body is more than just breathing. There's all kinds of sensations happening in this body. But the main principle is that they rise and they pass away. They rise and they pass away. They're all just processes. Where is this body? Besides this picture on the screen there. Where is it? It's just chemical processes going on, right? And this body is different every second, every millisecond is different. I mean, if you're just staying here observing this body for whatever it is, a few days maybe, it seems to be the same. But when you look more closely, it's constantly changing. And this is important. This is what life is, a constantly changing process. If your body wasn't changing, then in the Buddhist terminology, you're dead, basically. But even a dead body decays, doesn't it? It's constantly in process all the time. So where is exactly the body? In my book here, I made a point of trying to explain the various aspects of self in a verbal form, in the form of a verb form, not verbal, verb form. It's always moving, always changing. For example, there is no body, but there is no the body. In English, we usually use nouns, unfortunately, rather than verbs, you see. So you can be mistaken that there is the body, but it's not. It's embodying. This particular thing here is embodying these various processes here. You can say, in English, you can say chemical processes are being embodied here for this particular time. And if, there's not enough oxygen being processed into this body, then I asphyxiate, right? There isn't enough, I don't know what else I'm lacking in. There's a monk who has a potassium deficiency or something, right? Doesn't get enough potassium and he gets very sick. And it's just, because of this chemical, potassium. Right? And it's, that's the nature of bodies. It needs these different chemicals, or atoms and molecules and stuff, In the Asian system, they talk about the 4 elements: earth, fire, water, air. They're more like elemental qualities. The hardness is earth, the fire is the heat, water is holding things together, and the air is space or this distension, fills things out. So that those four elements are being embodied right here. Or I don't know how many chemicals are there now? Anybody chemist? 200 and something elementary particles, elementary chemicals or something are being embodied here in this time. Hopefully not too much uranium anyway. Or strontium-90 or something, but I'm sure we got some if you're alive in the 21st century. But in this book here, I mean, there's quite a few meditations here. So the first part is just, well, actually, I have to introduce the Buddhist teachings a bit, the life of the Buddha, some of the basic Buddhist teachings about karma, about what the Buddha means by anatta, no permanent self. And then the second part is about I making, how the I is developed, created to Buddhist template. And then the third part is the meditations and how to realize the cessation of this I making process from the most sophisticated, which are self views about yourself, to the most subtle ones of this dispositions, the tendency to conceit, to self reference everything. Most subtle ones, which require, of course, probably the most subtle meditations. And there's quite a few different kinds of meditations. The Buddha had an incredible variety of ways of approaching this topic. Mostly we only hear about a few basic meditation techniques or practices, but the Buddha was a very, very exceptionally gifted meditator. And so he practiced a wide range of meditations, and then he began to teach. He started off with the basic ones, and he began to give more and more detailed instructions to various people who, couldn't fit the standard ones, I guess, the eccentrics. So, but our benefit is that we can benefit from this great variety of approaches. Sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming, but I would say start off with the basic ones. And if you find that, they don't quite fit you, they don't quite work, then try the next one, more subtler levels. So anyway, this is a very short time, half an hour. So if you're interested, you come back on Sunday. Or for the next couple of years, 10 years or so. So it's a bit 2 minutes over time. Any pressing questions?
Few questions.
Yeah.
So, Ajahn, so I actually was privileged. John gave me a copy of the book a few weeks ago, and I read through.
Read through it.
Read through it.
The whole thing.
Yep. I feel like I maybe rushed through it a little bit. Probably need to go back and do the meditation exercise. Go through it again.
So if you read the whole thing, you must be enlightened.
I don't think so.
I was not deep enough. Okay. Yeah.
But I think there's some intellectual understanding.
Okay. Yeah.
Not deep understanding. I think one of the things that was probably most challenging for me trying to understand was more around the mind making of the ownership side of like I own this, it's mine.
Yeah.
And in investigating that, I think objects are kind of easy to let go of that, like this is my watch. It's just a watch.
Yeah.
But when it gets to more personal, like for example, relationships, my parents, my brothers, my children, that's much harder to detach from.
Yep.
Does that make sense? And so that's something I'm really struggling with. Well, how do I conceive of those people that are very close to me as not mine? Especially with my parents, I find that one's probably the hardest because physically created this body and raised me, taught me, you know, conditioned me. Adrian Brown would say brainwashed me with their concepts. But yeah, that's very strong. So could you maybe talk about that side of it?
Well, it's again, you have to be a little bit careful not to take it too literally, well, not yours, you see.
Okay.
Because it is still, we still are involved in life, you see.
Mm.
We still relate to this body.
Mhm.
We still need to feed the body and look after it, you know. So there is a certain degree of responsibility in a sense, and there's I think one theory that maybe it's a common one of personality is that we are 50% DNA, 15% early upbringing, and 35% our own choices in life. So 50% DNA.
Mhm.
So you have your parents' DNA in you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you can't deny that. Can't deny DNA. But who owns the DNA? See, their parents got 50% of their DNA from their parents, right? Blah, blah, blah. Back to Lucy, right? Back to Lucy. Yeah. So Lucy is your parent. So where does that leave your present parents? Quite diluted down the line of DNA, isn't it? So I mean, but it still is, this DNA is still part of reality. See, yeah. So it's not a matter of just saying, oh, going the other way and saying they're not me. That's the kind of complication, as it were, of just saying no self. You see, there is a self, really. I mean, that better be careful here. See, we would never said there was a self either, but didn't say there wasn't a self. He's very careful to kind of, there is a sense of a self, but there's no definite fixed self.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like there is, you do have parents, but they're not quite so fixed as we normally think they are. See?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's still a matter of recognizing you have certain responsibilities, you have certain connections, you have certain I say connections, with your parents and your loved ones, your own children, your own DNA. Yeah. But it's still not mine 100%. I can't control DNA. I may be, I think I'm really great, but I can't control DNA. That is the ultimate ego trip, huh? Maybe some politicians could think that way, but not the average person, every sane person. Yeah. So it's a matter of, if you contemplate, if you think about it, most thought is black or white. It's on or it's off. It is or isn't, you see. That's how thinking just has to work, But contemplation, you can kind of fill in the blanks and the gray a little bit more. Think, well, it is, but it's not. See? But what does that mean? People think you're very indecisive. It is, but it isn't. It is. There is DNA, but it's not quite mine. Yeah. It's just a universal thing, DNA, isn't it? Again, it's just molecules, right? Atoms and molecules provides the DNA molecule, isn't it? Or it's even more than a molecule.
Yeah, I don't know, because you have a strand of
Yeah.
It's got different.
So many it's a connection of molecules then. Yeah. But then you're back to elementary particles again. So, what is this still? Where am I in this then? All this molecules and atoms and stuff,
So is it more around just trying not to be too focused on, that ownership side of
Yeah.
and that attachment?
Yes, yeah. And then it allows you a lot more space too, practically. Your parents, okay, right? Yes, but there's some, maybe you can see yourself in your parents, some aspects, but there's also something different too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but you don't blame them for being themselves, that's just their DNA acting up.
Maybe not getting focused on them as a permanent self either.
Yes,
They're,
yeah.
evolving, changing
Yes, yeah,
beings as
yeah,
well. So,
yep. Rather than hold on to them as, I remember they did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but they're also fallible and impermanent and, so, yeah. Takes some contemplation, yeah.
Mhm.
A lot, yeah.
So, Ajahn, can we say that the I is just a thought? The idea of a concept, like an idea or a word concept,
Yeah.
conceiving, thinking, conceiving, giving birth to, conceit, sense of self. So even like etymologically, there's a sort of a flow through concept, conceiving, conceit.
Yep.
Which then sort of lends the idea that René Descartes, where he said, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. So if I don't think, then I am not. So that there's no thought, there's just awareness, perception, sense experience.
Mhm.
Thought only, or self only happens when there's the self-referencing, the eyeing and the mying and the meing,
Mhm.
which is the thinking process happens.
Mhm.
So like in deeper meditation, there's no eyeing or thinking happening. Therefore, there's no selfing. And that's where the real peace starts to begin.
Mhm. Yeah. But some of this, I would say also that, it's not just a matter of calming down that present I making. There's still I making that's been done in the past, which is our karma, the karma and vipaka from the past. So you can calm your mind right now and just live in a blank state and think, wow. But then there's still, stuff in the background underlying, which you already built you already created the action and the result from previous actions, and it's still in the background somewhere. You just haven't enough awareness yet, enough mindfulness, awareness, clarity to see what that is yet.
So with the enlightened mind, then there's still maybe karma that's fruiting, say with like Ajahn Chah, but it's not personalized as I'm receiving the result of this and it's my karma, but more just actions, cause and effect action resulting, but no one owning it.
Yeah. That's what some of them would say, that there is action going on, but there's nobody, they say in Thai, my jump, nobody grabs it, nobody owns it, nobody takes it. So you're still thinking, you're still breathing, you're still, eating, you're still living, but you don't personally take hold of it. Yeah, it says belong to you, so there's no result then.
Yeah.
Action, but no result.
Which even helps with no more future karma happening.
Yeah. So nobody there to own it.
Karma is just another process then.
Action and result. Yeah. Karma is the action and the vipaka is the result. Pali.
And of interest, the new science of epigenetics is stating that we can actually change DNA. By turning it on and off through thoughts. Thinking is actually what affects the biochemistry and then the DNA to be turned on and off in certain environment situations. So there's more power to the mind than what we previously thought. Dr. Bruce Lipton, in his book, The Biology of Belief in terms of what we think that affects the biology, physiology, health or illness of the body.
It's epigenetic.
Epigenetics.
Genetics, okay. I forgot that term. When I was in Vancouver, talked about it, but I forgot the name.
Any final questions from anyone?
Sure. I guess you could say that the ultimate, like we said, is releasing this idea of self altogether. But especially for a layperson, I wonder if, as a foundation for that, it's about building a healthy sense of self and then using that as a platform as for final release. Because sometimes you might want to jump the gun a little bit, but would you recommend to kind of do it in stages? I guess maybe it's not so clean cut one or the other. I guess they do kind of work on one another.
It's a very fine point between, I could say, disidentifying and dissociating. Like disidentifying, you have to actually pick up what are you identifying with first before you can put it down, as it were. Whereas some people, they want a shortcut, so they just dissociate and not me, not me, not myself. Nobody's here, that's not mine. That's dissociation. That ends in mental disorder. So, so we have to recognize what this self is. See? And the best way to do it is through, you can say, cultivating skillful qualities, skillful ones. You know, they do provide a lessening or a leavening of the self. You know, the negative ones, like say killing somebody, the ultimate ego trip. I'm saying you can't live. It's the ultimate ego trip. But even though I find you very irritating, if I have compassion, I'll let you live, you see. But I mean, to do that, I have to let go of myself. This part of myself that doesn't like, that feels irritated. I have to let it go, you know, to allow you space in this life, in my life, you see. But if I can't do that, I'll deny you. So I have to eliminate you, see. That's very egotistical. But allowing you, like developing this compassion in place of anger or aversion, I have to open myself, let go of myself, broaden myself, and letting it go that way, developing positive qualities, lightens the self then. Yeah, makes sense. So even though you have a red shirt, you're still a kid. You only have red.
And remember, you've got some problems with traffic lights.
That was
You
it.
stop. The policeman came
I
along.
got a ticket for going through red light once when I was a teenager.
Trauma.
Trauma. Like the green, go, go, go.
So we might finish up for this evening.
Okay.
So thanks for coming out this evening, everyone. And as you're aware, Ajahn will be he's staying here at Ratanagiri, and we'll be sharing some more teachings on Sunday. There's probably still space on that retreat day if anyone hasn't yet registered that still might like to come, or to bring a friend or a partner. So that's all good. You can always just let me know by email or by texting. You'd have my email address and phone number to text. So thanks for coming out, and we'll see some of you, maybe all of you and others on Sunday. Thank you.